Hello and welcome to Crucible of Words for more dedicated legacy action. I've been fortunate enough to get my hands on some Triumph of Saint Katherine today. Someone has kindly lent me 4 copies. So we are playing a Bant list that I actually lost to the other day, I think, from the player who's playing this, and they 5-0'd the league in the end. So, what is Triumph of Saint Katherine? So this is one of the new 40k cards. I say new, it's been out for a while, but it's only new to Magic Online this week. So, it's a 5 mana 5/5 lifelink. And when it dies, you shuffle it into the top 6, well, you get 6 cards and this, shuffle them up on the top of your library, and then put them back. However, the big deal here is the word miracle. So, if you would draw this card and it's the first card you draw a turn, you can just pay 1 and a white and get yourself a 5/5 lifelink. That's pretty good rate, as it turns out, and that's going to really help against some of these aggro decks that are pressuring you. You can just put a massive lifelink wall in the way. But also, on top of that, that means you're paying 2 mana for a 5 mana spell. You know what that's really good with? Our friend Up the Beanstalk. Now this is a card that has changed legacy quite substantially. It's kind of the main go-to draw engine in a lot of sort of control decks now. So we have this alongside Force of Will, Triumph of Saint Katherine, Murktide Regent, and Leyline Binding. So we've got a bunch of stuff that can make it draw some additional cards. And obviously Lorien Revealed, if we start casting this with an Up the Beanstalk, then we're just drawing all the cards in the world. But it's a thing that can happen. So we are very much lightly splashing the green just for the Beanstalk here. We are a fundamental blue-white deck here. We've got counter spells. Oh, there's another Lorien Revealed snuck in there. Let's put that. So we've got counter spells here. We've got removal spells. So we've got the plows, the verdict, and the bindings. In order to help the binding out, we are running a Xander's Lounge to try and make this a little bit cheaper. But we can also just cycle this. And we've got card advantage with Narset as well as the Beanstalk. Narset's going to be a lot easier to protect than normal if you've got a 2 mana 5/5 in our deck. So that's quite exciting to me. We've got a bunch of cantrips, and then Lorien Revealed, which is kind of cantrips, but in the late game can become card advantage like this column. So that's basically what we're doing here. 18 lands is relatively low for this sort of archetype, but we do have 4 Lorien Revealed, so that should hopefully help us out. Mana base wise, we have 1 Mystic Sanctuary, a couple of basic islands, a couple of basic plains, 1 forest, and then some dual lands. We also have a Meticulous Archive. So this is one of the Surveil lands, just an extra bit of card selection built into our deck that we can fetch when we're not going to be using that land anyway. And that's pretty much the deck. We have 8 threats to win the game with, and that should be more than enough in a control shell. As for the sideboard, we've got 3 Containment Priests. There is an awful lot of reanimated type decks around at the moment, so this can help versus that, as can these 2 Surgical Extractions. This is also pretty good against Muxus. Speaking of Muxus, Hydroblast, that's something I would love to point at a Muxus. We've got a couple of Doorkeeper Thrulls, which are also good against Muxus and a lot of goblin-y things, as well as some of the reanimatory style decks. A couple of Null Rods for all these Artifact One Ring style decks, and then some Veil of Summer to protect us against the sort of scam style things that are in the meta at the moment. And that's the deck. We're kind of blue-white splashing green, but also splashing some off colours just for Leyline Binding. But for the most part, we're going to be operating purely on blue and green, blue and white mana until we need to pivot into like casting a Beanstalk or something. But I'm excited to see how Triumph of Saint Katherine will do. It's been a long time coming. So I'm excited to get this one on the battlefield. Alright, remember to like and subscribe, and let's have a nice miraculous league. If you're looking to play Legacy on MTGO like me, why not try Card Hoarder? They're a rental service that I personally use, and I found them better than other rental services that I've used in the past. So why not give them a try? We're on the play. Starting on Savannah isn't where I want to be. We can go and fetch a basic island and start pondering. And we've got plenty of Beanstalk action to sort of get us into the game, and a Force of Will to sort of tide us over. This seems fine. I would like a bit of removal, but we should be able to find it along with our cantrips here. Oh, I'm playing Guy Bonella. Cool. They were the trophy leader last season, and they gave us a pretty sweet deck to play a little while back as well. Alright. Not the easiest opponent to begin our little league with, but hopefully the power of Triumph of Saint Katherine will compel us. We might be doing Triumph of Saint Katherine Mirror here. Maybe not. A Lotus Petal. Lotus Petal plus Tundra. That's an unusual combination. Yoshimaru. I think we could probably have time to deal with this. Delighted Halfling. If we don't counter this, we're not countering anything else with our Force of Will here. Alright, let's cycle this Lorien Revealed. I think we're probably getting a non-basic here. Just because we don't want to get wasted off of white mana. So we're probably going to get ourselves a Tundra here. Because white is our removal colour. Now, do we counter this Halfling? It's already a 2-for-1, but what is it going to cost us? It's going to cost us this Murktide. That's acceptable. We don't really want the Murktide right now. And our opponent spent 2 cards on that as well, and they're trying to obviously ramp up to something here. Alright, that's a nice one to have access to. So I think we're just getting a Beanstalk in here. We're not under a lot of pressure. Let's just start the cards flowing. They could daze this, but that's not really a problem for us at the end of the day. As Xander's Lounge, so we've secured our 3rd land drop, which is all we want to do. Make land drops, and then remove their creatures when the time comes. An Otawara, which pumps this because it's a legend. Sorry, if you're unfamiliar with this card, it's a 1/1 dog that whenever you play another legendary... Sorry, whenever another legendary permanent enters the battlefield, it gets a +1/+1. What does this do? Whenever you cast a legendary spell, you untap it and you loot. And it does something on the backside that we'll worry about later. Okay. We're probably just going to be Supreme Verdicting our way through these creatures in a turn or two. So if we don't find a land, we're incentivized to ponder here. Or we could always Brainstorm. But our hand's pretty good. The only thing that's not like amazing here right at this precise moment in time is the Up the Beanstalk. I think we're just going to ponder here. Okay, so this does represent another land because if we take the Lorien Revealed here. So I think we put the Binding on the bottom, then the Plow, then the Lorien Revealed. Recycling this now. Do I think our opponent has something like a Stifle in their deck? It's a possibility. Alright, so we're just going to go and get ourselves a come into play untapped land. We need it to be white or... So we got white here. This doesn't make white, does it? But it does make the blue. Are we just going to play on non-basics here? I think so. Probably means we're looking for the Trop here. So we're trying to dodge a wasteland, and then we can just clean up our opponent's board with this Supreme Verdict. Let's actually have a look at the backside of this now. It's a 5/5. Whenever source deals damage to this creature, exiles a card in the hand at random. If it's a land card you put on the battlefield. Otherwise, you may cast without paying its mana cost. Oh, that's pretty cool. All right. Let's see some looting. A Grist, sure. Also, in this deck, we can keep our Brainstorms because it sets up our threat. That's worth doing. Our opponent's incentivized to commit stuff to grow this and beat down and also untap this. Emery Lurker of the Lock, sure. Is this the next iteration of the weird Emery Hogak deck that this player sent me to play after smacking me around with it? Alright, so we're going to take 5 this turn, possibly 4. And then we're going to cast our Supreme Verdict, and the game should be eminently winnable from that point onwards. White, blue. Right. Let's just clean up all these creatures. Getting a cheeky little loot in first. Okay, so now our opponent's got 1 card. We've got 3. We can dig for a removal spell if we need one. And we can just slam... Right, that's fine. We can just slam a Triumph of Saint Katherine if we find one. Big KATH, as I like to call her. Not a big KATH. Alright, so I think we go... Deploy this. Another Up the Beanstalk. Are we just deploying yet another Up the Beanstalk? I think so. Just have all the cards. A Brainstorm is pretty nice too. So when we cast this Force of Will, we're going to draw ourselves 3 cards. That's pretty good. No follow-up? Oh, they're going to attack for 1 first, and then they're going to follow up and then untap this. I'm incentivized to counter a lot of things our opponent might play here. Alright, our opponent's had enough. We're just about to draw 3 cards. Because by doing this, it means that our Brainstorm becomes really good instead of just shuffling 1 card around. Alright, so our opponent is some sort of graveyard-based, making some guys type deck. I don't really know what's going on over there. Surgical Extraction could be useful, but I think we're just kind of going to go back in to... this is pretty good against Yoshimaru and Emery. Possibly some other things. So we could think about these. The Force of Negation looks a little bit subpar here. So we just have a couple of Doorkeeper Thrulls, I think. And then we can address the situation when we have a bit better idea what's going on over there. So there were 4 different colours of legendary focus mana, I suppose. What does this do? We've got a Brainstorm. That can sort of buy us a little bit of help. We've got the Verdict to work to. I think this is fine. Plaza of Heroes. This is the one that makes legendary mana, basically. Alright, they've got the dog. No Mox Opal. Sorry, legendary Mox. I don't remember what it's called. Mox Amber, maybe? Alright, I think we'll get this one down and get a little bit of Surveil action. A Mystic Sanctuary. We don't really want that now, do we? It's a shame we don't have any sort of Life of Malone Wasteland shenanigans to recur that Mystic Sanctuary, but hopefully it shouldn't matter if we can just make land drops, Wrath on 4. Alright, so the Caracas can bounce to save their creature from a Wrath. But that's also fine by me. This mana cannot make them an Orcish Bowmaster. Oh no, yes, this adds mana equal to the creature. So this can make them a white mana because they have a legendary permanent that's white. Okay, understood. Alright, I think we are going to go and get ourselves a Savannah here, because that gives us both white pips for our Verdict. Let's just start going up the Beanstalk. Alright, so next turn we can play Up the Beanstalk and Xander's Lounge, and then we can just jam away with the Force of Will and draw 2 cards. That'll be pretty good. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, we're a little ways off of this Murktide, so it's probably going into the Beanstalk, into the Force of Will here. So a Grist is something that I would counterspell here, because that can get around some of the other things we're doing quite nicely. We could Wrath, but then they're still going to be making guys. Right, let's go up this Beanstalk. Triumph of Saint Katherine. What do I want here? I think we're just going to play the Xander's Lounge tapped. Wouldn't mind a bit of spot removal here. We're going to get hit by a Force of Vigor or something. Another Grist. That's pretty good. We're not under that much pressure, but a Wrath is just going to tap the Caracas and kill the insect. So we're probably looking at getting our Triumph of Saint Katherine online. Alright, I like having access to these cards. We're probably pitching the Lorien Revealed or the Murktide. Probably the Lorien Revealed actually at this point. So we're going to want to keep one of our lands. We're probably not about the Supreme Verdict right now. So if we put the Triumph of Saint Katherine on top, we can draw that next turn, and that'll be pretty good for us. So I think we are putting land and then big KATH. And play our land here, and then pass. So if we Force of Will, we can then put big KATH into play. But we have to be careful about doing that because of the Grist. So we're hoping they play something in the second main phase that we want to counterspell. Alright, they've made this token now, so now we can counterspell relatively freely. And if we don't cast this Force of Will, then we just draw the big KATH next turn. Is this even good enough to counterspell? Like, it's a counterspell that draws us 2 cards and gets us a massive creature into play. Is that probably good enough? I guess we'll pitch the Ponder at this point. This also draws us 2 more cards, so we have drawing a million cards here. We don't really care about this Inti, but getting our big threat online. We've now got an answer for this Grist that will draw us some extra cards. Let's see what they try and get us with here. Feels like it's going to be a pretty difficult spot for us to lose this one. We just got so much card advantage now. Outland Liberator. That can certainly blow up our Leyline Binding. Interesting. So we probably want to plow the Outland Liberator, and then we're binding the Grist in response. We'll play this Plains. Just plow this. Right, so now we'll get our max cards off this. We'll take out the Grist. And our opponent is all sorts of trouble here. Also, this isn't legendary either. Even though it sounds like it should be by its name. So we're going to lose one Beanstalk, but that Beanstalk has got us all the value we require. So we attack with our big KATH. If they block, then they'll trade their whole board. And we'll gain 5 life, and this will just get shuffled in anyway. Let's just try and end this game. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're going to draw one more card. Another Beanstalk. Cast a Ponder. We could have cast this first to make our guy bigger. Narset, and then big KATH, and then take this Misty Rainforest. And then we're ready with another big KATH next turn as well. I don't think we're losing the creature matchup here with all our removal and our enormous yachts. Walking Ballista, X equals 1. So our opponent probably has an infinite combo in their deck using the... what's it called? The Cauldron. Agatha's Soul Cauldron. Emery. That's pretty good. So we're incentivized to attack here and then Wrath, I think. And that's perfectly reasonable. We'll say no to this Miracle Trigger. Go attacks. Because we're going to Wrath in a sec. So we just reduce our opponent to no resources. White, blue. Right, so they're going to ping us for 1. They're going to bounce their Emery, sure. This shuffles in. And then we're going to cast a Brainstorm and then decide what we're up to. I guess we can just make big KATH. But if we make big KATH, we're just going to draw 2 cards anyway. So it's not really going to matter too much. So I guess we just go KATH and Beans. Beans and KATH, sorry. And play this one out. And then we can use the Narset to find some removal. Now we've gone through a large portion of our deck at this point. Another Outland Liberator, so they can take out our Leyline Binding and get their Grist back. That's pretty tasty. Right, here comes big KATH again, which draws us a card. Blue, blue 1. Let's just go and get ourselves a card advantage. I'll take this Leyline Binding. And we can react to things as and when we need to. We can also Brainstorm this Katherine on top of our library. And Emery, that's acceptable. Doesn't really do too much right now. Let's just do a quick Brainstorm here. Set up another big KATH. So, probably want this land. Guess we didn't really need Lorien Revealed. Another one. It's a miracle. Yeah, our opponent's had enough. I don't blame them. Playing a creature matchup into this deck is always going to be pretty grim, especially when they're like not counterspell style deck. All right, 1-0. Let's go to round 2. I'm playing against another one of my friends. This is Lightwalker. They're the Painted Servant expert. What does my hand do here? We have a pretty slow land here. So I can play Mystic Sanctuary, then turn 2 play Tundra. I think we just want something a little bit more. Alright, this is much more what I want. Just reliable lands. Just get it done. Got a little bit of dig. We got Draw Engine. We got Removal. We can probably throw away one of our lands here. Probably going to be the Savannah. Hard to say what our opponent's on. I don't think I just want to fetch and ponder. If I fetch and ponder, it has to be off of a tropical island. I guess that's fine because we can just play the Lorien Revealed later anyway. Right, so let's get a tropical island. Start out with just a friendly little ponder. Big KATH we don't want next turn. So if we bury KATH, this turn we draw the ponder. Next turn we draw that, then this goes on. We don't really want this, I don't think. Let's shuffle any order. That's much more like what I want. If I believe our opponent's on Painter, we're going to want to plow all their stuff. And our opponent is usually a Painter player. And they make the literal best Painter Servant content you'll see on the internet. So by all means, check out their YouTube. It's Lightwalker is the name of their YouTube. Do I think we've got another turn here before our opponent kills us? I believe so. Alright, so now we've got a Force of Will anyway, so we're covered on that front. I would like another white source so we can double spell soon. But cantrip and Force of Will, sign me right up. A Goblin Welder, that gets swept up by removal relatively easily. Ancient Tomb. Painter's Servant. This one is harder to sweep up with removal because of Pyroblast. But if our opponent's playing like a build with LED, I think we have to go for this now. And we'll clean up the Welder in a sec. Alright, so here's going to be the Pyroblast. If they've got the LED, we do lose here. They don't always run LED. But I know like Walker plays every variant of Painter imaginable. Okay, so let's plow this to begin with. Let's cycle this. Let's get ourselves a Tundra. Let's play the Tundra, holding up another plow. Our Leyline Binding costs 2 mana at this point. We got 3 types to reduce it. Actually costs 3 mana then. Alright, a Goblin Engineer. This is interesting. Plow this in response so that they can't weld in whatever they find. Right, so this probably gets them Phyrexian Dragon Engine, would be my guess. And then that allows them to generate some card advantage. And even if we kill the Engineer, they can still just cast it for 5 and get a new grip. So we're going to need something here. Flooded Strand. This can get us the land that surveils. So we get a little bit of card selection before our Beanstalk goes off. Are we interested in taking out this Engineer so they get 1 go with unearthing this? I don't... It's an awkward one. Take this out, our opponent's on 1 card, and then you just get 1 refresh with this. I think that's acceptable. Alright, our client is lagging a bit. Apologies. Let me take out this Engineer now. Stop all the shenanigans from happening. So we do have an emergency Brainstorm if we need it. Otherwise, we can just do the Surveil first. Emergency Brainstorm could be a little awkward here. Alright, no play from our opponents. They need 1 more mana before they can unearth this. Right, let's go get our Surveil land. I think this is better than getting the cycle land here. I'll put that on top of my library, please. There's a strong Magic the Gathering card. Oh, they're going to grind it away. Like, I could just Brainstorm and make sure we have it. That seems fine. They're going to Pyroblast this. Sure. Okay. So that says goodbye to our Narset and a land. What are we going to draw? A Murktide Regent. Well, that'll do. Brainstorm, Plow. Just trying to think what we're more likely to want if we're Mystic Sanctuarying. Do we just make the biggest one we can? That does make it a 2-turn clock. I think we'll take the Force here and leave the Plow in the bin. Supreme Verdict. I will play this land out. Will I play this land out? Yes. No. Yes. Brainstorm's better if we leave it in hand, so I think we're going to leave it in hand. We've got the mana we need. This is an untapped source anyway. We have a 2-turn clock. Our opponent is living off the top, more or less. Right, Urza. That's a pretty good one, but we will outrace that. So they're going to play the Dragon Engine here and draw 3 cards. This is only going to be able to deal 4 damage, so they're not going to attack with it. Chaos Defiler. New card. Exciting. Obviously, new card for online. It's been out for like a year plus. Oh, this is an interesting attack. I'm going to take the damage here. Because if they have something really weird... I guess they would need more than just a Lightning Bolt. But I don't think this is going to be a matchup about Life Totals. Could be wrong, and that could come back to bite us. But, alright. I like this position that we are in right now. We'll play out this forest now. So we've got a Leyline Binding that we can fire off, which also draws us into another card. This as a Saga Construct will not be enough. If our opponent plays a Painter's Servant, we have that potentially covered. Alright, our opponent's had enough. Excellent. So we do have some useful tools for this matchup. Null Rod and Hydroblast are pretty good, as is the Surgical Extraction. Then we have Doorkeeper Thrull. So this won't stop Painter's Servant, but it will stop the Engineer. Containment Priest can stop welding in some things, but basically we don't really want these cards. We want these ones. So what do we want in this matchup? Like we need to keep our forces in, but I think I don't want the Force of Negations. Narset is pretty nice. The Beanstalk is obviously like a nice engine that allows us to take over the game. So at the moment, we've got 2 Null Rods. The Leyline Binding is pretty good. It's a little bit on the slow side. We're going to trim a Ponder for a Hydroblast here. I think Supreme Verdict is a nice catch-all. I think we can probably trim a Murktide for another Hydroblast. And then Hydroblast for a Leyline Binding. I don't think we have the space to fit in these Surgical Extractions when our removal just kind of does stuff anyway. I think the Narset is going to be useful because this can be quite a grindy game. Going for this. What have we got here? We have a removal spell and a Brainstorm. That's kind of how I want to start this game off. So I'll keep this. Alright. No play from our opponent there. I'll play out this Flooded Strand. This gives us options including Lorien Revealed and Source Plowshares or Desperation Brainstorm. Not a big fan of the Desperation Brainstorm, but we can do it. Alright, so now we're going to go and fetch our little Meticulous Archive. Get a tiny bit of Surveil action. Hydroblast. Put that on top. That's an excellent card in this matchup. Right, so now I'm going to play this one out so we can go and fetch our basic planes. So if our opponent is playing Blood Moon, we can have both basics. And we don't care about green mana that much anyway. It's just interesting. What's our opponent up to over there? Well, let's Brainstorm. Let's see. I think this is going to get Pyroblasted. I know our opponent likes to aggressively use Pyroblasts. And they're a much better painter player than I'll ever be, so it must be right. Okay, I think we'll Brainstorm now then. We've got a lot of tools here. I think we'll put back the Mystic Sanctuary and probably a Binding. And with the aim of drawing the Binding next turn anyway. Did I just forget to play my land for the turn? I think I might have done. Awkward. Hopefully not too awkward though. Alright, there's our land. And now we will pass. So we've got shields up. We don't have like an engine or a way of winning the game just yet, but we will find one. We've only brought it down 1 win condition. So we've still got 7 in the deck. So the top card of our library is Mystic Sanctuary. I don't really want Mystic Sanctuary, so I'm going to shuffle that away using Lorien Revealed, I think. And we will get Tundra here. And we can fetch a green source with this. I don't think we have to worry about Blood Moon with our current mana base. Right, we're just playing the wonderful world of draw go. We can go and fetch up a Mystic Sanctuary if we keep getting islands here. And then we can use that to just put a Lorien Revealed on the stack. That's probably getting Pyroblasted, but an interesting game, this one. Now, our opponent wouldn't just keep like a bad hand or something. They've obviously got a plan because they are an absolute expert with their deck. So I'm curious what their plan is. Just have enough mana and just overload us in 1 turn. That could work. We don't have a good answer for Urza Saga, which is unfortunate. I don't really want to tap out for this Lorien Revealed by putting it on top of our library, so I think we're just going to pass rather than get a Mystic Sanctuary here. So you might still want this Plains. You never know. Aha. Let's play Big KATH. I think we should have fetched a Plains first if we're going to go on the Plains line. Alright. We now have a win condition that is very potent and quite difficult for our opponents to deal with. It's like double bolt or fury bolt to kill it. There is a Grindstone. How do I feel about Grindstone? Now we can clear this up with a Leyline Binding. We can fight over the Painter. A Goblin Welder. we can removal spell this. There's no point fighting over the grindstone when they have an Urza Saga that can find them a grindstone. That clearly feels like bait to me. We've got some resources here. And we've got a big chunky threat too. I'm going to go fetch a plains here. And our opponent's upkeep. I don't think they're getting a Pithing Needle here. But I don't really want to get caught short. So if we go and fetch a tropical island here, we have access to green mana. Right, so we've got a Mox Opal. A Painter's Servant, you say? Alright, let's counterspell this. I imagine our opponent has a Pyroblast here. We can have a very weird looking stack. What a silly game. So our plan from this point onwards is that we can untap with a Force of Will or Removal up and just crack our opponent for a few turns and win the game. Right, managed to nail the Painter there. But like our whole deck is basically just removal and counter spells. So most combinations of stuff are going to end up similarly. That situation. Obviously, the efficient 1 mana counter spells pretty handy. But the alternative is we fight over with a bunch of Swords to Plowshares there. Alright. So I'm still not sure I want to be getting this Lorien Revealed. But we can put a Hydroblast on top of our library maybe. I think we're going to go and get the Mystic Sanctuary now. I'd rather have a Hydroblast here than Lorien Revealed. Like, we're winning at the moment, we just need to keep winning. Sure, they're going to grindstone away. There's the Null Rod. Keeping them on their toes. What is this? Enters the battlefield, exile target player's graveyard. They're going to get a load of 1/1 flying insects. I think we just can say no to this one. I've got Savannah here, it's just bash for 5. Opponent is on 1 life. We have 3 removal spells. 2 of them can hit anything. So we can take out... Alright, you can exile a bunch of stuff. That's so many things that our opponent gets to exile there. Okay. Pretty cool thing to weld in and out as well. This means that we do not have a good Murktide available. We can make a 3/3 Murktide, which is actually fine-ish on this board, but we can't really go down with our removal spells here. Our opponent has the magic amount of mana now, because the Mox Opal's on. So 6 mana is the mana you need to play a Grindstone, a Painter, and activate it. So even if we Leyline Binding their Grindstone to let us untap and hardcast something, we could just get stung. Alright, so let's see what Big KATH wants to do here. She's obviously going to be swinging. So we have Binding, Plow available with the mana we have. And he's going to trade 5 insects for our Triumph. They can like try and mill us to stop the Triumph. But obviously it shuffles randomly into the top 7, so you don't really know when is the right time. Right, I'm just going for the chump block here. We don't have any way of trampling over, we're just going to have to grind through them the old-fashioned way. Are they going to swing for a little bit here, or are we just going to keep them back? Sure. This is just a delaying tactic until they can get things on the go. Blue. Right. I'm not sure this Narset is going to resolve in our opponent's 8 Pyroblast deck. Just want to get a Beanstalk down. Yeah, so our opponent's just using this Tech Swarm as a way of drawing a bunch more cards by getting a bunch more turns. And they don't care about our life total. There's a Great Furnace. But every red blast we can get out of our opponent is 1 less red blast they'll have when we're trying to fight with Leyline Bindings and stuff and they've got a Painter on blue. Quite like to find Xander's Lounge. Reducing the cost of these Leyline Bindings to just 1 mana is pretty big. They're just going to start manually grinding us, are they? Oh, 2 big hits. Another Katherine. So if we get worried about this grindstone, we can just start dealing with it. Let's send in Big KATH. The card I'm tapping should let our opponent know that we've got a bunch of removal in hand. Lorien Revealed. Okay, that's a quite nice one. If we cycle this for the cycling land though, that does give us 2 mana Leyline Bindings, which I think is worth doing. Oh, sorry, 1 mana Leyline Bindings. That means we have all of our interaction up now. Right, here comes the manual grind. So we're probably just going to Leyline Binding this grindstone in our opponent's end step here. I'm still going to have 20 cards to play on. We probably won't play a second copy of Leyline of Up the Beanstalk if we draw one. We could also just try and remove all of their threats here. Right, now we only have to remove one of their threats. So here comes Big KATH. This Leyline Binding, we can just take out the Canoptech Stalker here. And now we have 2 lethal threats. Oh, I got a big chunk there though. Lining bot on their own just lining bot on their own stuff. They're just showing us what they had in their hand. Alright, that puts us at 2-0. Pretty good start to the league. Let's see if we can continue it. Right, opening hand for round 3. Doesn't have removal, doesn't have any counter magic. Doesn't even have like a great way of securing stuff. We've got too many of our threats, so we're going to do mulligan this one. This one seems a bit better, but we do have this stinky Mystic Sanctuary. I think we can keep this. I'm going to chuck the Triumph back. So we're going to try and ponder into our next land drop. Use Murktide into the Force of Will. Flooded Strand from our opponent. With no follow-up. Interesting. I'd like to see a land here. Not a land. Okay. I think we just play this. I don't really want to get a basic here. I kind of feel slightly pressured to. Right, we will get the basic. Right, we got some lands here. That's kind of what I want to do in this matchup. Narset might be quite a useful card as well. We're not going to need Savannah yet. But like this. So the plan here is we can brainstorm to put something we don't want on top of our library and then use our archive to filter it away. Xander's Lounge. So we could well be on a mirror match here. Or at least a big chunk of the same deck. So we do want to secure this Narset next turn. Alright, I'm going to cast this Brainstorm. Supreme Verdict is the one we don't want here. So I guess we're just going to put the Mystic Sanctuary on the bottom and the Supreme Verdict. And we'll play this Middle of Verdict. And now we have mana to play a Narset, which can be like a pretty big game breaker in this. Now, are we just going to run this Narset out? Hard to say. Our opponent's probably only got hard counter spells like Force of Will. But we can probably fight over this Narset as well. Alright, there is a Flooded Strand from our opponent being cracked. A Savannah. Yeah, it does feel like we're running possibly the same deck. Quite how many cards similar, I don't know. I think if this... Okay, so we've got Tropical Island. So this is going to be a Beanstalk. No, it's going to be an Uro. That's fine. Okay, so they're on a different build. They're on Uros instead of Big KATH. Uro is probably better in this matchup than Big KATH. But I think Big KATH is just better in a lot of the aggressive decks. Okay. So I think we're going to play this Narset out. And we'll force to protect it if we have to. Because this card is a bit of a big game breaker. Oh, we're just in, aren't we? Wowzers trousers. Alright, let's get a free card. I will take an Up the Beanstalk, please. So if we can get our Up the Beanstalk going with a Narset in play, our opponent's going to have a really tough time. So as long as Narset's in play, our opponent's engine doesn't exist. Obviously, they can play an Uro, attack a bunch with it. But they need a few more cards in their graveyard first. I have to imagine that their hand is just all removal spells. Which means our... Like, we only have 8 threats, and our opponent's going to have more than 8 removal spells in their deck. So, they're probably going to have about 10 removal spells. So this could be an awkward one. This could be like a really long one where our opponent just runs us out of threats. Because their removal will exile, so the Triumph won't do what it needs to do. This Beanstalk. Is this what you want to fight over opponent? Nope, they're not. They don't have any counter spells. That's what we can conclude from this. Okay, we can play this one out. I think we will cast a Ponder. And we can use the Narset. If there's any one of these we want. I would like this Force of Negation, please. So I think we're going to go... So do I want that plow that's right there? I think so. That gives us a 1 mana answer in case there's something spooky. Right. Right, we are gassed up pretty well. If our opponent plays 4th Eorlingus, we can try and fight over that using Force of Will. I think I'm not going to pitch any threats because we might be pretty low on... threats compared to the amount of removal spells our opponent has. So we can't afford to throw any away because we do not actually need to win the game at some point. Right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's just cash it all in. It does give us a card, but we're going to play a land. Right, another Murktide. Right, we're just going to play this tapped because we want to keep making land drops. And we'll pass. So this is just going to eat a source to Plowshares or whatever. I don't think this is what we're fighting over. But when the dust settles after a few threats, then we have to start protecting our threats at that point. But this time we're just trying to keep our Narset around. That's the main thing. As long as we've got Narset in play, we should win this game. Right, it's going to be... Oh, Hardcast Solitude. So if I force here, that takes 2 cards and we draw another one. Right, let's force this, pitching... I think it's the Brainstorm here. Alright, we got another threat now. So the Solitude is an opponent's threat that can answer the Narset. That's why we counterspell this. If this was a Plow, we just let it go. I imagine we're going to see a Plow soon. They might not have much in the way of Leyline Binding. Yep, so we allow the Plow. It's just keeping our Narset around that's the important thing. I'd quite like to draw another land so we can play Big KATH holding up Plow. Right, we've drawn the land. Let's just cast Big KATH face up. Still draws a card. Okay. So we've got our pseudo Baneslayer in. For those who remember a time when Baneslayer was the most expensive card that had ever been printed for Standard, really. That was a wild time. A Leyline Binding. This can answer the Narset. But then we can answer the Binding. If they take our Triumph, that's fine. Okay, that's fine, yeah. We just don't want them to take the Narset. Well, they can take the Narset, and then we can just snatch it back with our own Leyline Binding, and then we get 2 fresh digs with the Narset. But as long as our opponent can't draw additional cards, we will eventually win this game. Right, this is going to be a 4th Eorlingus. This will require a Force of Negation. The Force of Negation doesn't draw a card. So we have to pitch as Murktide. Because if we draw another blue card, we get to counterspell this 4th Eorlingus. Alright, yeah. So we can almost certainly counterspell this 4th Eorlingus. I don't think our opponent's going to have 1 mana answers to counterspells. Alright. So we can super gas up if we want to. Just the old draw 4. Or we can just binding their binding. We'll see what we draw and then navigate the turns that way. Another Lorien Revealed. So that's already 1 blue card for our 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, okay, so we're going to crack this for a Xander's Lounge. Now we're just going to draw a bunch of cards. So we've got Force of Negation, Leyline Binding, or Plow up. Or, well, Force of Negation plus one of those other 2 ones. Okay. That's a lot of stuff. We have 8 cards in hand. Wowzers, trousers. We've already played a land for the turn. That's fine. I think we can probably pitch the Supreme Verdict. Our opponent's got a 4th Eorlingus getting back. Well, they're getting back their 4th Eorlingus. A Dress Down. That is a very interesting play. You can have the Dress Down. Like, are they just going to let us... Are they doing some sort of weird... Is this just a cantrip? It's going to mean their guy's not going to have haste. It just seems like an odd line to me. So we have to get rid of one of these. I think we're just going to get rid of the land here. Now we've got plenty of spells. Opponent not doing anything here. Try and get our big KATH back. We want to do this on our opponent's turn while our Force of Negation works, and then we can untap and then cast it. Let's not reveal this. All the big KATHs. Alright. We have a threat. Because we know the fourth Theolingus is coming, we don't really want to counterspell to protect this if we can avoid it. But trading 1 for 1 when we have all the engines is pretty good, as you can probably imagine. Swords to Plowshares. Sure, that's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We can leave it 2 white sources. And if we draw a land, we can play another land as well. I'm probably okay to just discard Beanstalks at this point. We don't want to deck. So how many threats have we lost so far? 1, 2, and 1 big KATH, sure. Got 2 Murktides and 2 big KATHs left in our deck. This is going to be Uro. This won't draw a card, it'll just gain through life. And then we can just plow it and be gone forever. If I were our opponent, I would probably have scooped by now, just to save time on the clock, because we are ahead in clock as well. Let's just get rid of this. No win conditions for you. Let's go attacks. I think I'm okay to throw another big KATH down. Their mass removal will be either Terminus or Supreme Verdict, so these will get shuffled in, so it won't matter. Dress down. This is just a cantrip. That's... Well, it's not even a cantrip, right? I don't really know what this is achieving. Oh, no, they do still draw a card, right? Yeah, because it's only 1 per turn. But they haven't drawn on this turn yet. Sure. Okay, so we could have cycled Lorien Revealed for a land, but I'm just happy to have all these extra blue cards to pitch. Up the Beanstalk. That doesn't do anything with Narset in play. Narset is so savage in this mirror. Right. We've got 10 power, 2 counter spells, a load of removal spells. I like our chances. Okay, I land. Let's go to attacks. They're pitch casting a Solitude. This will draw them a card. Honestly, that's fine. We've still got other big KATHs. If this was a hard cast, we'd counterspell it, but it's not. So, alright. So that is 2 big KATH down, 2 Murktide down. So we have this, and we have 1 more KATH in our deck, and 2 more Murktides. We don't really need to do anything here, so we're just going to sit and hold. We already have Mystic Sanctuary in play, so that's not really going to get us any joy. Right, they're casting this Up the Beanstalk. That is acceptable. If they hit the Narset, we can then get it back. Alright. They're going after the Narset, sure. If they go to draw any cards now, we'll just immediately binding this and get our Narset back with more counters on. And we've got plenty of other resources. We might run into our second copy of Narset somewhere along the lines as well. A Brainstorm. Honestly, that's fine. That's just moving cards around. It's not card advantage. So we'll allow that. So if we have to expend a bunch of resources now, we might end up playing the second Beanstalk. Binding your binding, the classic. Both of my bindings are on my opponent's bindings. You can have your Beanstalk. You'll be prevented from drawing a card. You have 2 cards in hand, 1 card in hand. Alright. Have a little look with our Narset while we're here. Sure, let's take a Force. And eventually we can close this game out. Yeah, I think it's just a Beanstalk here. We've got a full grip. Our opponent's down to drawing off the top. We've got 3 counter spells we can deploy. And if we ever get in a situation where we do need cards, we can just gas up with the Lorien Revealed. So this one should be highly winnable. Borderline unlosable, but you never know. Let's see if we've got any lands left in our deck. We do. We have 1 Tundra. Is that the only fetchable? We've got plains. And that's it. Okay. Another Narset, you say. They're casting a Leyline Binding. You say no to that one. Alright, our opponents decided to scoop up. They got 13 minutes left on their clock, so they're a little bit behind on time. So, what is going to be useful in this matchup? So, Hydroblast can counterspell just the... Well, Pyroblast our opponent might have. Potentially Minsk and Boo, or they don't see that very often, and the 4th Theolingus. That's not amazing. The Veil of Summers, this can counterspell our opponent's counters, so we can win a counter war. I think that's better than the Hydroblast. I also like Surgical Extraction here. Supreme Verdict is an odd one, because we don't really want to ever be playing a Supreme Verdict. So I guess we'll trim those and get the extractions in. And then what do we want for these Veil of Summers? Because these just help us force through our Narset, which is kind of the most important thing in this matchup. But what are we taking out? I think we have to keep our forces in to fight over opponent Narset. We probably can trim on threats slightly. We can probably trim a plow as well. Murktide. I do like the big KATHs, though. They don't get hit by Pyroblast. Let's take out... I kind of do want the Ponders, though. Fuels various things in our deck. Are we going to take out another plow? I guess we're bringing in the extractions for the Uro anyway. So, 4 bindings, 2 plows. That's probably enough. If we go to game 3, then we can just go like proper stonewall removal. This hand is slow, but it means we don't lose to Narset immediately. I'll take it. We do want to secure land drops, but we do have 2 land drops in this hand effectively. So we just want to play our archive, get a little bit of value there, and then just start pondering and brainstorming and Lorien Revealing our way to more mana. We will not reveal this, sure. Play the archive. We'll put that on top of our library because we would like to draw lands. Alright, our opponent's got Misty Rainforest, they're cracking. It's going to be a Beanstalk. It is. I would like to fight over the Beanstalk. Alright. So on our turn we can Brainstorm here. Put this Katherine down, and then we have a nice little win condition coming up. The Veil we don't have any green mana for, so that can go on the bottom. And then we'll take big KATH. So we'll play out this Tundra. So the plan here is to just play the big KATH next turn. And then also cycle Lorien Revealed to get that Veil of Summer away. Unless we want to take the Veil of Summer and then cycle afterwards to get the Trop. There's 2 options for us. A Beanstalk. Right, then we counterspell this, and we're going to pitch a threat today. They didn't leave up red mana, so they don't have a Pyroblast in hand. They are trading 2 for 1 with these exchanges, though, so they are favourable to our opponent. Let's cast this. Get big KATH in. Play our planes, and now we can Lorien Revealed if we don't want this card on top of our library, which I don't believe we do. Alright, there's the plow. Not unexpected. We've got a good 4 minutes on our opponent, more or less. Short, ponder. We just try and find our engine and stick it ourselves. I think we are just going to cycle at end step, get rid of that Veil of Summer, and just sort of move on with our lives. So this gets us our green source, so we can cast a Beanstalk should we draw one. Right, let's ponder. There is an Up the Beanstalk. I do like that. Force of Will, then the Ponder, then the Beanstalk. Our opponent got a hard cast Force of Negation here. And Brainstorm. Alright, if we can resolve this Up the Beanstalk, it's going to be pretty big news. Alright, our opponent found a Force for this. So we've traded similarly in resources now. Carpet of Flowers, you say. That's a pretty big mana advantage. I think the time to fight over this mana advantage is gone now, though. Like, we could burn a Leyline Binding on it, but I don't think that's what this game is going to come down to necessarily. If they just cast Lorien Revealed here, that'd be pretty bad for us, but they didn't. Alright. Let me ponder off of this so that we can still cast a Beanstalk if we draw one. Brainstorm, Force of Will, Surgical Extraction. Yeah, we knew some of these are coming. Interesting. Okay, I think we're just going to draw the Brainstorm. And then we can Leyline Binding something if we want to, We can then brainstorm for Surgical Extraction if they play an Uro. Green mana. This is either Beanstalk or Uro. Oh, Life from Malone. Yeah, that's fine. If they dredge over and hit a wasteland, then that's not fine, but that's a problem for later. Through Force of Will, and we have Surgical Extraction underneath that. I guess we could brainstorm. Doesn't feel amazing we have this Force of Will in hand, so I think we're just going to hold back so we can at least answer a 4th Eorlingus. We've got more spells. Our opponent's got more... Oh, okay, this is interesting. What are they going to get back here? Just a Ponder, right? Yeah, honestly, that's fine. I don't think that's worth blowing a Surgical Extraction on. That Surgical Extraction is to stop Uro from ruining our day. Alright. This Carpet Flower is also going to eat a lot of time off our opponent's clock to resolve. There's that Ponder we know about. There is the Uro. Sure. So this can happen. And then we can brainstorm. They can't put this back on the stack yet. Right, so we have a Surgical Extraction for our opponent's upkeep. That is our plan. We can protect this with a Force of Will, if we think that's important here. Leyline Binding and Pyroblast in our opponent's hand. What win conditions do they have left? They have 1 4th Eorlingus. Do they have a second Mystic Confluence? Mystic Sanctuary? They do not. Okay, so we just have to answer 1 spell from our opponent's deck. Understood. They only have 1 red mana, but obviously they can get more with the carpet. A brainstorm. I would like to brainstorm, please. You're going to Pyroblast this? You're not. Okay. So... we're not really in Leyline Binding mode, are we? And put that on top, and... probably a Ponder. I think Brainstorm is slightly higher value for us at the moment. Alright. Blue. Blue. Force of Will, Brainstorm, Force of Will, Ponder, Brainstorm. We want to keep the Surgical Extraction, and we want to keep the Lorien Revealed. Yeah. So we were expecting this. This just means that next turn we can Lorien Revealed. And we can just gas back up. Get Lorien Revealed going. Right. Let's see if they've drawn some interaction here. A Force of Negation. We can fight this. We spend 2 cards to get 3 cards. So that's +1 card here. Honestly, I think that's fine. We just want to not lose to the 1 win condition in our opponent's deck in the next 7.5 minutes or whatever. The grind. It is real. That's some green mana. Let's not do anything though. Our opponent only has the 1 threat. Right, let's just cast another Lorien Revealed. Okay, that's fine. Again, we just need to stop them winning with the 1 card that matters. I should have checked to see how many Pyroblast they had. Not that we really get to play around it. We just have to point our Force of Will at the 1 thing that matters. They don't have a way of bouncing their Mystic Sanctuary either, so it is just this. I guess they could have a Teferi first. That's the thing we have to answer. Oh, they hit the 4th Eorlingus now. Because they make red mana, because that gives them Pyroblast mana. Alright. Are we good or not? We are good. I think that's the last win condition in our opponent's deck. I didn't screenshot it, but I'm pretty sure it was. Blue. Blue. We know they've got a removal spell in the hand, so we're just going to make a little guy. We get rid of this Beanstalk and this Murktide. Just a little guy. Which means if we draw another one, we can make 2 larger ones. And this isn't really about them killing our Murktide Regent this game. Teferi Time Raveler. Sure, if they want to bounce our Murktide, we then make a bigger one. Again, we know they've got a removal spell for it, so not the most exciting. Prince still has his Leyline Binding. A Brainstorm, you say? I cast a Brainstorm. A Narset. That's a nice one, isn't it? We don't need the Plow. Our opponent doesn't have any more threats. Do you want the Murktide? Not really. Lets us pressure the Teferi, but... Alright. So we've got the Murktide on top to pressure the... Well, it's not really going to pressure the Teferi, is it? Because they're just going to Leyline Binding it. But we don't really care about the Teferi that much. There's a hard cast Force. Sure. I'm pretty sure our opponent doesn't have a win condition left. No, they're going to deck first as well. I don't think we're... Do we want this Murktide? I don't think we want this Murktide. Let's... Oh, I should have cracked this earlier so we could get the lounge tapped out of the way. That's a mistake. We're combining their Teferi, but again, it doesn't matter. Our opponent doesn't have any win conditions. We didn't get to play in our opponent's turn because of Teferi, so we can F6 their turns and get a lot of advantage on the clock. Right, our opponent's down into the red part of their clock, so there won't be too much left of this game. A surgical extraction. Right, let's just get rid of their 4th Theorlingus. Just make sure there's no win conditions in their deck. They have 0 win conditions. There's no way they can get this back. Okay, we can just F6 through every turn and win the game here. Our opponent's got less cards in their deck than us. They got no win conditions. I'm not really sure why we're still playing this one. I think they might have boarded out win condition that they've forgotten that they've boarded out. Yeah, so they're bouncing their Beanstalk, drawing some more cards. Alright, our opponent's scooped up now. Okay, so we are 3-0. We are 6-0 as well. So that's pretty exciting. We locked in the positive record. Let's go to round 4. Alright, our opening hand here for round 4 requires some white mana somewhere along the lines. But we've got Beanstalk. We've got a Force to keep us alive. I'll take it. Cavern of Souls. Force looking a little bit worse. Goblin. Okay. I guess we're counter-spelling this. Otherwise we don't get to do anything. If they don't play that Cavern first, we don't counterspell that. Let's hope that that's going to slow them down enough. Right, we're not getting bopped on turn 1, so that's something. We could have pitched something else, but the Supreme Verdict might... Like, we could have pitched the Verdict and held on to a Force, so maybe if we draw a blue card we can Force again. But I think the Supreme Verdict is likely to come in handy. Our opponent just plays some guys. Let's see, Spirit Guide. Chalice for 1. Not actually that strong against us. That's fine. Hits our cantrips and our plows, but we don't actually have those going right now. Right, we've drawn the white source that we need. Let's just go into the Beanstalk. Oh, hello. That's a bit awkward that it's there and not on top of our library, to be honest. Although we don't have white mana, so we want it to be a few down. So next time we can hard cast our Leyline Binding. Some sort of little goblin guy, sure. This is going to get haste and it's going to bash us for 3. Okay, little goblin guy. And then we've got a cantripping Leyline Binding for next turn. And if we can find that other mana source, we can Supreme Verdict our opponent into the dirt. So we're holding off on this Leyline Binding to see if our opponent plays something like a Sticker Goblin that we need to hit on the stack so they don't get up to Muxus mana. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4 mana. This is a lot of mana. 6 mana. I think we know what's coming. Your friend and mine, said nobody. Mr. Muxus. So we can let this hit. We can then let them put the triggers on the stack. And then we can decide what we're binding. Because if we can stop them from having haste here. Okay, so we let them choose what they want. We're going to hit the War Chief here. And then hopefully hit a Plains and just wrath their board. So we're going to take a little bit of damage, but not a lot. So they've gone and fetched a Name Sticker Goblin. Please find a white mana source. It's not a white mana source, but maybe it's drawn us closer to one. So we have to take out this War Chief so that we don't just get killed this turn. I haven't done the maths, but eyeballing that, I think we will be dead or basically dead if we don't stop that. So we're going to take 3 damage this turn. Can we find a Supreme Verdict mana? We just need a white source. Come on, we're going to draw a Lorien Revealed. I can feel it in my bones. Oh, we drew a blue source. We can't Brainstorm because of the Chalice. We can't cast this. What can we do here? What can we do here? So 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Yeah, so we don't get to do anything. Alright. We missed on the white mana source that could have completely just turned this game. Alright, so I did mention at the top that we had some stuff for this matchup. These things seem pretty reasonable. I think Force of Negation, we don't really need Force of Negation here. That can go. I think we can trim on a Ponder. We didn't have time to be setting stuff up that way. And I don't like the Narset that much here either. Let's just check our blue card count as well. So we've got a bunch of blue cards here, so that's fine. We can probably, and we got these 2 Supreme Verdicts too. So we can probably afford to trim like another Murktide. And then we've got 2 more things we're trying to hit. So we need to keep in all of our removal. I like how these interact with the game. Are we trimming on Beanstalk? It's a little bit deadly. Maybe trimming on another Murktide. 14 plus 8, 22. That's plenty of blue cards for our Force of Will. If our opponent plays a Chalice, we can just remove that with a Binding down the line. So it's fine. I think this looks alright. See if we can Doorkeeper Thrull them. Okay, we have a removal spell, we have a counter spell. We don't have any more mana. So if we keep this one, we are relying on the top of our deck quite a bit. So we've got 18, so 17 lands we can hit, plus 4 Lorien Revealed. So that is more than a 1 in 3 chance. This hand is good. Means we never have to worry about Muxus as well. Am I going for this? Sure, I'm going to believe in the heart of the cards. Like, obviously, Brainstorms and Ponders are also fine. So we've probably got like nearly 50% of our deck that we can draw. Alright. If our opponent plays a Chalice, we probably have to counterspell that just so we can plow. Alright, here's a Chalice. Yep, we do have to counterspell this. Are we counterspelling pitching the Verdict or the Force of Will? We're a long way off from Verdict. But Verdict will help us down the line. But I think we need to have the stuff that might help us get there. So if we draw any blue card, we can at least counterspell like another Chalice or whatever. A Hydroblast. Okay, we've missed our second land drop, but we have one of the best cards in the matchup. So, you know, maybe we'll be okay. Another Chalice. I think we have to do this again. That's goodbye to the Hydroblast. Like, they're just getting him to Turax off these Chalices, and then they're going to be able to just dump a load of boys in play and just ransack our life total. Alright, we're going to hold up this Containment Priest or this Plow. I quite like to get the Priest in this turn if possible. What is this? A Ringleader. We stick a Goblin. I think we're going to let this hit and hope that they play a Muxus. Oh, okay, 4. That's a pretty low hit. Hasty Battlecry Goblin guy. This is better to plow than their other creature. Just going to get our Tundra here. Are we getting Tundra? We get Savannah, and then we can get the Scryland and try and make our draw better. That sounds good to me. So we'll plow this guy. So they're going to get him for 3 this turn. That's 6. And then we'll go and get our Meticulous Archive now and try and pull ourselves towards some useful plays. Alright. Triumph of Saint Katherine. I will put this on top of my library, please. This feels like a good one. Alright. We are shields down on a Muxus this turn. But we have a 5/5 lifelink, which is going to do a lot of work. We just need them to not put Muxus into play this turn. We need to fade 1 turn. Come on. Bombardiers. Okay, so they're going to attack and then throw this stick a goblin at our Triumph of Saint Katherine. That's fine. It'll be back soon. Don't you worry. Could be back as early as next turn. They're just going to have to keep feeding stuff into it. Otherwise, they're going to lose to it. So we can Containment Priest, which feels bad against Broadside Bombardiers. Or we can Beanstalk, but then they can get us with a Muxus. I think we're going to just... we don't want to draw the Triumph of Saint Katherine with the Beanstalk. And we can always put this in the end of turn anyway. But we kind of want to use this as like a counter spell for Muxus. 4 mana, a Ringleader. It's not that exciting. Let's see what they find. Just a name sticker goblin. So I can use this as a removal spell on this Ringleader, which doesn't feel amazing. But I don't think we can afford to let them hit us for 2 and ping this at us for 4. So we're going to play this. I think our opponent's going to win this game. I think Broadside Bombardiers is just going to carry them through. They can sacrifice their Chrome Mox to kill our Containment Priest. Dislike this play. Are they going to do 4 damage to us, or are they going to kill our Containment Priest? If they've got Muxus in hand, they'll just let the trade happen. If they don't have a Muxus, I think you probably are inclined to shoot us for 4 here. No, for 6, sorry. Yeah. Okay, no Muxus. So we need to find a plow. Or we die. Triumph of Saint Katherine. This does do something. So what this does is, if we have 2 guys back on blocks, we can block this. So they have to throw something at this, which means they only hit us for 2. And if they don't have, well, obviously they can just stick a goblin and throw that at our Triumph and hit us for 2. And then we're back in a very similar position to like we were a second ago. But we can still draw the plow. So here's a sticker goblin. We don't care about Muxus, but Battlecry Goblin is lethal. Goblin Warchief, that's probably lethal. They can throw that at the Triumph. And then attack us. That's still not lethal, I guess. So they have to throw something at Triumph here. Oh no, what am I talking about? They just throw the sticker goblin and kill us. Of course they do. Why on about? Yeah, we got absolutely bodied that round. I was under the gun a lot. We did keep a little bit of a ropey one that had some really good interaction, but our opponent just kind of knocked through us pretty effectively there. Like, we managed to cast almost all the spells in our hand, so it's not like we had loads of spells trapped in hand because of the limited lands we had. It's just the Goblins deck is proper scary. Alright, so we've lost our first round. Let's go to the final round now. And, yeah, drawing an extra card with Beanstalk when we didn't have a land wasn't going to do anything, so we had to play the Triumph and see if they blow this up and attack or whatever. But anyway, let's go to the final round and see if we can get the 4-1. We have land drops. We have a Beanstalk. We don't have any interaction with our opponent at all. This is basically 6 land. I think we have to mulligan. Alright, this is better. You can keep this. We probably sack off the Murktide here. Which gives us removal spell and counter spell. We'll play this so we can't get wastelanded. We're not just going to fire this Lorien Revealed because it's our blue card. The plan here is to play the Beanstalk on turn 2. We have the wrong force to really capitalise on the Beanstalk, but we at least have some interaction here. An Ancient Tomb Gamer. We need a green source from this so we're not fetching end of turn to get our Surveil land. Alright. Let's get our Tropical Island. And jam this up the Beanstalk. Lorien Revealed. Okay. Not quite what we need to be. But now if we top deck another Triumph, we get to cast it and draw a card, which is going to feel gross in a lot of Ancient Tomb matchups. It's going to name Goblin by any chance or Human. It is Goblin. Alright. We were 3-0 until we found the Goblins. I think Goblins is going to be relatively difficult for us. Like, we have a lot of removal spells, but the guys just keep coming and they keep coming. A Rabble Master. Well, we're not counterspelling that, so in comes the boy with his friends. So we can answer this next turn and draw a card. Because we can. The temptation is there, but we have to play smart here. So if this goes and gets us Xander's Lounge, we play that tapped. Our Leyline Binding costs 1. Provided I can do maths. So this is Grixis plus blue, plus green, plus white. Yeah, okay. So we can Leyline Binding on our opponent's turn in their main step. They're about to go to combat. Because there might be a scarier thing that we need to counterspell here. What is this going to be? Just a ringleader? Just a ringleader. What is this going to find? Alright, that's going to be fun for next turn, isn't it? Right, not a Triumph of Saint Katherine. That's good. We want the Triumph of Saint Katherine on top of our library right now. We're only going to take 3 this turn. But it's all adding up. Like, this Battlecry Goblin just come in and just wreck our day pretty easily. This is basically just a blue land in our deck. So I think we're just going to play another Beanstalk. Hope that it finds us something useful. A Ponder. So we could Ponder into a Plow here. We have pondered into a Plow. And there is a Murktide Regent that we don't want, but there is a Binding that we do. So let's say no, and then draw this, and we'll play this land so we don't shuffle away the other removal spell. Alright. If we can removal spell into Triumph of Saint Katherine, I feel that we're in a reasonable position. Chalice of the Void, you say? Well, I guess we're going to plow this ringleader. Or are we just going to counterspell this? That's a way smart thing to do, isn't it? This Force of Negation is not doing anything, and Lorien Revealed, we already have our 5th land for Big KATH. Right, is this going to be Sticker Lad? No, just the Matron. That's kind of annoying. I kind of want to nail this, the Battlecry Goblin. Muxus. Okay. Okay, understood. Right, I think we have to take this 3. The plan is to kill the Battlecry Goblin and the Muxus. Right, so there's our other removal spell. Like, we could just play this 5/5 lifelinker, but then if they get any sort of mana and start doing Battlecry Goblin, we do just lose. However, now we get to jam at our opponent. We'll probably fetch the Meticulous Archive here. It's going to be an uncountable guy. Right, let's see how bad the damage is. Pretty weak. And they just get another ring. Like, it's still just like guys that won't stop coming. Which is awkward. What are we doing here? I think we're going to go get our little Surveil land. If we find a big KATH on top, then we can have a pretty good time here. Problem with the Battlecry Goblin is they can just pump a load of mana into it before we get to kill it. Right, let's go and get our Meticulous Archive. This Plains is not going to help. So if we cast the Binding now, that gives us the ability to big KATH. So we'll see what they attack with here. So if we can put a big KATH into play, that'd be absolutely sick. Come on, let's do it. We didn't do it. So this probably needs to reduce the damage we're taking this turn. I think we need to save the Plow for the Muxus. I'll just plow this now to be mana efficient. Okay. So it's going to hit us for quite a chunk. 7. Okay. So big KATH on top, please. Oh wow, there is a big KATH on top. So this and this. I'll draw 2 cards. Force of Negation, load of rubbish. Ponder though, that is useful. We'll ponder using our blue-green mana, so we can try and find some white removal. Any order, shuffle. Alright, so we will ponder again. Supreme Verdict. That is one I would very much like to have access to here. We can't do like a Brainstorm line that gives us big KATH. We don't have quite enough mana for that. So I think we put the Regent down, then the Verdict, then the Brainstorm. Let's work out how much mana our opponent has. So they have two pumps here. So let's say they play a Battlecry Goblin and just pump it twice. So that would be attacking for 4, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. 16 damage, and we gain 5. So we do need to shuffle our library here and find some more removal. Force of Will. That's not going to help here, is it? Okay, maybe our opponent makes a mistake, or they gives us. We can Force of Will to try and draw into a white card. Even though we can't counterspell, we can still draw the white source, the white spell, to change the maths here. We are getting 5, so we're going to be going up to 12. So we only need 1 white spell to survive here, provided I can do maths. Sticker Goblin. Yuck. So if we counterspell this, that's 1 less pump that they have for their guy. So now they're just going to be hitting for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, no, this is good. This gives us some joy. Maybe we can hit another big KATH. We did not hit another big KATH. Or a white spell. But our opponent doesn't get to kill us this turn if I can do maths. So play the battle cry, activate it, swing for a bunch. We gain 5, so we're on 11 here. Oh, they had another guy. Well, that's a disaster. Yikes. I think that's enough to kill us now. So uncounterable Battlecry Goblin comes in and gets 2 pumps off on the team. We needed to stop them getting 2 pumps, and that's what they've got. God, this Goblin deck is so good. Like, you need to spend all your removal on like such poor creatures. Like, you know, Sticker Goblin is just a 3-mana 2/2, but you kind of need to remove it in response to its trigger to slow your opponent down sometimes. But then, you know, they just keep making ringleaders and Battlecry Goblins, just all these things that kind of need answers, and eventually they overrun you. Like, that's what the Triumph is supposed to help in this matchup. But we've not been doing amazing at setting. Oh, what? Did they not just have us dead on board? Okay, there's a Muxus for next turn. Was that not lethal if you just played the Battlecry Goblin and pumped twice? Maybe I'm mistaken. Oh wait, no, they not have enough to pump twice. They only have the 1 pump. We're now getting in this weird situation of, are we attacking with our Triumph to guarantee 5 life? Because we can play another one. Or do we hold them both back on blocks and have 10 life on blocks whilst removing 2 of their guys? Would quite like that. Okay, so now they're doing a Battlecry pump here. Is this lethal? I don't think this is lethal. I haven't done the maths. But they do have an additional body or 2, right? So maybe it is lethal. I guess we're just going to let them go to attacks. We're going to go to blocks. And then we move on with our lives. It's looking pretty lethal, actually. Just eyeballing this. 3, 6, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Yeah, that is lethal, isn't it? Alright, they did get there. What are we doing? Same as we did before. With these things. We do not require the... Although being able to counterspell a chalice is kind of important if we're bringing in 1-drops. But I guess we just answer it. The bindings is the plan. We still do have some forces. We'll trim on a Ponder. We'll trim on a Murktide. We're trimming on multiple Murktides here. And on Up the Beanstalk. That's kind of what we did before. Like, the Beanstalk's kind of low impact. So maybe we're supposed to cut another one. Just run like another Ponder. It's a blue card, finds removal spells. That seems fine. How good is Island Ponder? We have a counter spell with no real removal spell. Yikes. Do we have to mulligan this? This looks somewhat similar, unfortunately. Kind of looking for plows. I think this one is even worse. But I don't really want to go to 6, so... Alright, I think we're going to keep this and bottom a Murktide. Although Murktide is a big thing that we can sit out and start gobbling up their creatures with. I think the Murktide has to go. We can draw into something in a bit. So the plan here is to set up a stream of removal spells would be nice. So we can make turn 2 Up the Beanstalk, but then what are we doing? The Xander's Lounge gives us turn 3 Leyline Bindings for 1 mana. That's still not good enough. I think I have to shuffle here. A Brainstorm. Okay. So next turn we are like Meticulous Archiving and then Brainstorming. Trying to set up big KATH. There's a Chromox. We could just be dead on turn 1. Like, Goblins does have the God Hand that just kills you turn 1. A Blood Moon. Pretty good. We could have avoided that a little bit by fetching a Ponder. Fetching an island for our Ponder, sorry. But I think we're just going to get bodied by that now. Alright, we're fine. Let's cycle for this. I think we are getting a blue land rather than a white land here. None of these are useful, so we get any order and shuffle. Okay. So I have blue and red mana right now. So we need to find a plains, and then we can start casting Leyline Bindings. Our opponents slowed their own mana down a little bit. But okay, so we don't get to cast any Brainstorms. Understood, opponent. Force of Will. You're a little bit on the late side. Would I rather have this come into play on tap now? I think it's fine. Alright, so we've got Force of Will. So we can counterspell something. Cavern of Souls no longer works because of their Blood Moon. We need to find a Lorien Revealed or a Plains. I don't mind about a 2-2. We can counterspell the scary thing that it makes. Alright, our opponent's down to 1 card. They've got a 2-2. If we can find a white source, then I think we win this game. We did not find a white source this turn. Okay. I was really hoping to get this Brainstorm to help us find stuff. If they're just cracking for 2, that's not too bad. Matron. That's something you play second main phase. We don't really have enough green cards in our deck to be playing Force of Vigor. In our sideboard. White source, white source. Okay, we have a Force of Will, so we're not going to get killed by a Muxus or something. So Ringleader or Muxus we will counterspell. Also, the Battlecry Goblin is pretty counterspellable at this point. Alright. Just need a white source, and then we get to play the game. Goblin Matron. I think we allow the Matron, it's just a 1-1. We get less Muxuses in their deck. This adds 1 to their clock, but they're less likely to draw more Muxuses. Maybe that's a weird thing, a weird way of doing it. So basically paying 1 life over several turns to... Okay, so Ringleader. That's also fine. But yeah, so we'll counterspell that. Where's my white source? Alright. Yeah, so where some of the other Bant, like the more Bant heavy ones with Uros and stuff, they get to run Force of Vigor in the sideboard. Us not being able to do that feels awkward. This is scarier than Ringleader, so this has to go. So us not getting to run Force of Vigor means that we're supposed to keep in our Force of Negation just to stop situations like this. We could have fetched a Ponder on an island on turn 1. But then we found an island on turn 2 anyway, so it would have made a difference, and we couldn't fetch. The only thing we could fetch off of that was a green source, and that's not actually very helpful. We may have like 2 Up the Beanstalk in our deck. Right, so there's a 2-turn clock now. We need to find white mana now. We did not find any white mana. That is the end of our league. Alright, so we finished 3-2. Not a terrible record. Let's have a quick look at the matches. You'll notice something interesting here. We 2-0'd all the decks that we beat, and we 0-2'd twice against Goblins. Make of that what you will, but I think Goblins is very, very strong. Alright, so in terms of what our deck actually does, we're just splashing for Up the Beanstalk and Leyline Binding in our deck. And we did run into a bit of trouble with Leyline Binding being a spell that we couldn't actually cast sometimes, which was certainly awkward. If we were running some Solitudes, those are something that we can hard cast at kill stuff, but we can also pitch cast it in a pinch against Goblins. So I think maybe that could help us out, because obviously Triumph of Saint Katherine, you know, big KATH is going to do a lot of work in that matchup if you can get her into play and, you know, start clipping some of the scarier things. But the issue is Leyline Binding is so expensive sometimes. we're not reliably casting it on turn 2 or whatever. So we're kind of, yeah, I think the earliest we can cast Leyline Binding is turn 3, right? I'm just trying to think if there's any configuration. So we have this, which is 3 types, and then play this. Okay, so we can cast it on turn 2 if we go turn 1 Xander's Lounge, turn 2 Savannah. Right, we have 1 Savannah in the deck, yeah. So that combination does get us the turn 2 Leyline Binding for 1 mana. But that does require 2 specific things to fetch. And if we don't have the fetch lands, that's not necessarily what we can do, because sometimes we're playing on, you know, we've got 4 basics in our deck. So, you know, sorry, 5 basics. So we've got quite a lot of lands that we can actually just draw that aren't fetch lands. So, a little bit awkward. We do have like Narset in the main, which is obviously great for the mirrors, but not so great versus like the Goblin decks. So it's going to be good versus Bug Beans and stuff though. So I think Bug Beans is seeing more play at the moment, and there's also that Reanimator deck, and the Narset is fine against the Reanimator deck, although something like a Solitude would also be pretty good in that matchup too. So that's kind of where I think I want to be looking. In terms of what I think you can change in this deck, I think these are like relatively flexible slots. I think you don't necessarily need 2 verdicts, but you definitely want 1. So these are the flexible slots in this list. But I would also say some number of Murktide Regents can also be swapped around. Triumph of Saint Katherine is kind of like the threat we're banking on a lot of the time. Murktide Regent obviously fuels up the Beanstalk, which is why it's good, but we could trim like a Murktide Regent for a Solitude. Although, is our white card count high enough for Solitude? We are very, very blue heavy. But that combination of Chalice and Blood Moon that we fought against in that final round did definitely hit us for 6, and we couldn't really do much about that one. I guess we could have kept one of the... We could have mulliganed heavier or something, but I just think that it's going to be difficult to play against Goblins because you need to have your lands to line up perfectly in order for your removal to work. And they just keep making threats, and if you don't get like a big thing down like a Triumph or a Murktide, then you're going to end up just losing to whatever they have left over. Now Triumph is very, very good at stopping that from happening, but you do need to find it and set it up. It is a 5 mana player if it's not set up, so you kind of have to brainstorm it back on top of your library, but you're already using your brainstorms to try and find the removal so you can stay alive. So it's kind of tricky. I think you're always going to struggle against Goblins just because the ceiling on that deck is pretty high. Sideboard wise, like we got a lot of this cutesy stuff here, you know, Doorkeeper Thrulls and Containment Priest. Like I think they're fine against Goblins, but I kind of just want like more removal. Like could go as far as like Celestial Purge even, or like bringing in some Solitudes. Something like that might be better. Obviously, you know, these cards have got uses in other matchups. Like this is obviously going to be pretty good against Doomsday, and it's going to be pretty respectable against Death and Taxes as well. And Containment Priest is going to be good versus Reanimator deck. So it's not like these cards are just to try and stop Goblins, but they're just extra tools we could have that can maybe jam something up a little bit. But the old playing the Chalice and the Goblins to stop all the Hydroblast people are boarding in is pretty savage for us. But I'm pretty happy with how we played most of these games. I think we risked it a little bit on some hands towards the back end, but I think like with the Goblins player, we ended up almost casting all the spells in our hand anyway, so I don't think the low mana actually was the thing that got us. It was just our opponent just had so many threats, and we couldn't really do much about it. Obviously, if we'd have had a little bit more mana, we might have been able to take a turn off to draw Up the Beanstalk, but taking a turn off against Goblins is really tough. Alright, I think we are done today, and that is our first foray into these Warhammer 40k cards. I would say Triumph of Saint Katherine was pretty good. It's awkward that it didn't do enough to save us in the matchup where I think you most want this, but this is pretty serviceable. Well, it's more than serviceable, it's pretty great against like Delver and stuff, because it's just a huge threat that they're going to struggle to answer, and every time you connect with it, it just completely changes the clock. Although you can sometimes get into a situation where your opponent's just sat on a Murktide to block it, but we are a deck just packed to the gills with removal in theory, so we should be able to answer the Murktide. Alright, remember to like and subscribe, and hopefully I'll be able to borrow some other different Warhammer 40k cards and play some more as the weeks go on. Alright, thank you so much for watching and goodbye. If you'd like to support me in the channel, please check out my Patreon. It has a free guide to budget Turbodepths as well as 3 tiers of support. A low cost one that enters you into my monthly raffle for a free donation deck on the channel, a mid-tier subscription that gives you access to my detailed Turbodepths guide that is updated every month as well as regular articles, and lastly the higher tier gives you all of the above as well as a monthly donation deck for my channel. If you're interested in supporting the channel this way, please check out the link in the description.